The second is in your role. How do you perceive your role? I say my role is an HR function. It's how you slot me in an organization. It's how you determine how much my compensation will be. That's it. Because no matter where you put me in the organization, I'm always going to act bigger than that title. And the reason for that is because if I have gifts that I got to get out, they're not going to be defined by your job title. Does that make sense? Now, that's not arrogance. That's not bravado. That's trying to build a life legacy that is worth something. Does that make sense? How many of you all know people dying in their cubicles? Are they slaves? They have choices, right? But they've allowed either their employer or themselves to define that role in such a way where it has sucked the life out of them. So now they're no longer serving anybody. They're just maintaining. And it becomes an insidious cancer because sometimes they'll sit there and be like, you know what? I'm not going to work hard anymore. I'm going to show them. Right? They think they're hurting someone by not contributing. Well, the reality is they sit there for 5 or 10 years. Now they can't even go anywhere else because they haven't done anything. So you've been useless for all these years. You thought you were spiting someone else. Everybody else's life is going on and you're still dying in that cubicle. Now we came to this work to change the world. We came to this work to change the world, to help folks. And now we've settled. We start sacrificing. Not sacrificing, satisficing. Satisficing is an economic term. We're satisficing just to get by. So what I've decided is, if you think about racism in America, if I wait my turn, I never get where I'm going to go, most likely. So I've learned early on to get out of the line and find my own way. Because if I'm waiting for someone else to do it for me, give it to me, or want to invest in me, I'd be waiting a long darn time. I wasn't going to gamble on that. If I'm going to lose, I'd rather crash and burn based on my own effort. So in my role, what this means is I've always tried to act like the CEO, even when I was starting as an intern. Are your ideas limited to your role? Is your brilliance defined by your role? No, that's my point. Genius is just genius. Your gifts are just your gifts. They can be manifested however you choose to express them. The only thing you have to do is be politically savvy enough to know how to operate within the culture to survive. Now that's real. But the reality is, your role should not define you. You should not be one of those people saying, well, you know, I know these homeless people need me to help connect them up to some social services. But my job is just to hand them this coat. And by golly, that's all I'm going to do. You see my point? You've done your job. But if you were really living into your legacy and stepping into your power, there's more you could have done for those folks. But because you don't see that possibility, you're pretty useless. You're pretty useless. So for me, my role is an HR function. And what I mean by that practically, let me give you some examples, is that I do not let folks interview me. I control the interview process. I control the interview process because if I don't, I will probably end up someplace that will not be able to deal with my energy and I will get fired and it will be my fault. Right? If you know you want to operate in a particular way, if you know you're going to be pushing the limits and the boundaries, you ought to want to be proactive in the interview process and not get seduced by each other's personalities. Oh, you all grew up in the same town. How wonderful. You went to the same university. That's all BS. You read my bio. We don't need to talk about that. Let's talk about strategy. If you hire me, what will I do? I want to have a conversation around the work, not the job description even. I want to have a conversation around what I will do. And that's what I did when I came to PolicyLink. Because what I want you to do is decide right now. If you don't want me, don't hire me right now. But what I don't want to do is to get hired and then you're like, you know, Michael, we don't do that here. That's not our culture. How many of y'all been in places like that, right? The interview went great. And as soon as you got up in the house, all of a sudden, people trying to pull you to the side, why don't you calm down a little bit, right? So I need to control this process. What it also means is I don't show up trying to dim my light so that I get the job. Because I need you to really see who I really am so that you can really make a really conscious decision about, do you want that or not? So my role is inconsequential. It's HR, it's compensation. It has nothing to do with this thing here, my legacy. And I'm trying to find where I can work so I can continue to build my legacy. We got a question?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I really like what you're saying in terms of the combativeness, in terms of this is what I want. If you don't want what I want, I'm going to find something that will allow me to do that. And very quickly, when you said engaging community, I thought enraging community. With the things that I want to do, if I speak to a group of people and I don't enrage some of those people, then I think I haven't been clear enough as to how I see what I want to change. So to me, engaging and enraging, sometimes you do have to confront your audience, confront your community. That's the point I wanted to make.
Thank you. So I agree with it, and I agree that you've got to be clear about what you're choosing to do. I accept the fact that I'm a reformer, not a revolutionary. If I want to be a revolutionary, I'd be burning the house down. So this is where I'm always trying to get out of really fanciful notions of who I am and what I'm choosing to do. It's an important thing about how you perceive your role. So I believe what John Greenleaf believes, that large institutions still rule the world. Large institutions still need to have their capacity to serve increased. They need regenerative forces within them to help make that happen. I want to be a regenerative force within institutions. And institutions do need that outside force pushing them to change. That's why you need people in the streets. And I want to be one of those people, when the people go to the streets, I can take that energy and do something with it institutionally. I've been on both sides, and I don't think there's one is better than the other. I think you need both of them. But I'm clear about where I want to be situated, right? So when I define my role, what I basically say is I always want to sit at the nexus of money and power and be able to use that privilege to help folks who can't be in that room.